and welcome back to a brand new video here on this beautiful May 15th afternoon. It's time to give a status of the 2024 race as we have some breaking news just in. Donald Trump and Joe Biden will debate on June 27th. This is a June 27th debate. The debate will be held in Atlanta, Georgia, on stage at CNN. And you got to think about how incredible of a development this is. This was sparked this morning with about a 12-second video from President Joe Biden, speaking, basically calling out Donald Trump and asking him, saying, "You've been, suggesting that we debate, and here I am accepting your debate." As this New York Times article says, he opened the exchange by saying he was willing to debate Trump just twice, but as early as June. And they both have foregone the Commission on Presidential Debates. It's a nonpartisan commission, and they both said they're not going to do that. As this article outlines, the voters will see both candidates before early voting begins in September, the first on June 27th, live in CNN, and the second on ABC, September 10th, with a vice presidential debate somewhere in the middle of those debates, presumably after the Republican convention in July. The Trump campaign agreed to the June debate and proposed a monthly debate schedule, saying we can debate in June, a debate in July, a debate in September, in addition to a vice presidential debate. So very interesting. I think this is going to be, obviously, I can't wait. It's going to be a lot of fun to see these two to see these two candidates on the stage again. But again, I always said I didn't think Joe would debate unless his campaign really felt the need they had to debate, that there wasn't really any way that they could get around debating. And part of that reason is because of the polls have just been absolutely brutal for Joe Biden. And a new recent New York Times poll has Trump leading in 5 of the key battleground states, with it within a basic tie in the one state that Biden is leading in. You have Trump 47-44 in Pennsylvania. You have him up 7 in Arizona, 7 in Michigan. You have him up 10 in Georgia, and the most incredible number I thought was 12 in Nevada. And so when you look at all these polls and you see just how much trouble the Biden campaign is in, you really have to think that there's no way they could get around debating the former president, and that's why I think that they feel like they need to, and that's why I think we're going to see both candidates on the debate stage, and it's going to be really interesting. But again, I just think that today was really, really good news for the president, because no matter what the Democrats have thrown at him, he's leading in all the polls, and he's really showing why he's 100% the favorite for the presidency of the United States right now in this election. Now, we're still early. It's May 15th. We're still about 6 months or so away from the election, just under 6 months. But this is a significant development. And when we look at what's going on right now with Alvin Bragg's ridiculous case against the former president, you think about it in history of how ridiculous this case is. To bring this case in any court of law is laughable, and Alvin Bragg wouldn't have brought this case against anybody other than the name of Donald Trump, and I think he would be the first to admit that. And I made a joke the other day when watching the trial, was saying, I think the Trump defense team should call Alvin Bragg to the stand, because I think they should they should basically get him on the stand and get him to admit that this was a political persecution. This was everything that the Trump team has said it was, and basically saying that, why is this case being brought? And what we've seen the past 17 days, and I followed this trial closer than really anybody else that I know, what they're basically, I think this is cause for a directed verdict. The prosecution has basically said that they're going to rest after the ridiculous testimony of Trump's former lawyer and former, as they call him, fixer, Michael Cohen. Michael Cohen on the stand Monday and Tuesday, and he will continue cross examination on Thursday. And the problem for the prosecution that I see is they still haven't defined what exactly the former president has been charged with. He doesn't really know what the problem is. And when you look at really any legal expert in the country, they are all debating, even on far left circles, they're all debating on what the former president is charged with. They say it's 34 counts of business falsification of records, that those are felony counts. They try to bootstrap that misdemeanor into a more federal election failure. It just makes no sense. And really, the only person that could tie Donald Trump to these business ledger falsifications is Michael Cohen, who, as Jonathan Turley laid out in a great article on the New York Post, that this man has just basically portrayed his entire life to get Donald Trump. This man is kind of, he has not remained loyal to Donald Trump. He's basically been obsessed with getting back after he was put in prison. He recounted on the stand how he ranked in hundreds of millions of dollars on books. He admitted that he sold items with $32 t-shirts with a photo of Trump in a jumpsuit behind bars and a coffee mug with the phrase, "Send him to the big house, not the White House." It was clear that, as Jonathan Turley writes, that Cohen is the same grifter saving himself one Venmo at a time. No prosecutor, as he lays out, would rely on Cohen. He's their entire case. But they still don't have a case. They don't bother to show that Donald Trump was responsible or knew that the payments were recorded on ledgers and business records. As Jonathan Turley writes, quote, they also just shrugged away that the need to show why denoting these payments as legal expenses was fraudulent or what the correct description might be. They still have not even said what Donald Trump should have laid them out as. And Alvin Bragg said that, he should have paid with them with campaign financing, but then they would charge him. You get charged for doing anything that's personal for campaign finance with your campaign finances. I mean, that's illegal. You can't do that. So it's, damned if you do, damned if you don't. And I feel like Donald Trump, is obviously innocent in this case. And I hope that the rule of law in this country will return him a not-guilty verdict. If this was in any other city than New York City, this wouldn't have been continued. This would have been over at the Stormy Daniels' ridiculous testimony that the judge should have declared a mistrial over. But the problem is that this is a, Democrat judge. This is a conflicted judge who should have recused himself weeks ago. And, he's allowed this to continue to go on, which is laughable. It's embarrassing to the state of New York, and it's embarrassing to the state of New York law. And we'll see where it goes from here, but I don't think it's going to affect this election at all. I do not think that this judge, even with the guilty verdict, will put Trump in prison. He said that on the stand, that he doesn't want to put Trump in prison. This would be a first-time offense, so I really feel like it'd be some sort of probation, maybe large fine, I don't know. But I would be shocked if Trump goes to prison, and this will all be over very soon. But I do think that I have to believe in the rule of law in this country, that there's no way this jury would convict Donald Trump over this ridiculous theory of a case that, if they bring this case, you could probably bring this case against any other candidate in the country. So where does this leave us? You see Donald Trump and Joe Biden going in a debate with Trump leading every single poll, every single poll Donald Trump is leading, and you really feel like the Biden campaign is desperate. And when we pull up the electoral map, and even these, even the states where Joe Biden, carried in 2020 by a lot, you look at a state like Minnesota, and this is this poll right here from KSTP and Survey USA. This is the gold standard in Minnesota polling. This is after, back when they polled in, I think it was mid-April. This is a poll conducted just a couple of days ago from May 8th to 11th. It shows this within the margin of error in Minnesota. And, I don't think Trump will win Minnesota. It'd be pretty far fetched to believe that. But if we're just going based on the polls, Nevada's going to Trump, Arizona's going to Trump, Georgia's going to Trump, North Carolina's going to Trump, uh, Minnesota within the margin of error. So you say that's toss up. Let's just say Trump gets it. Let's say, you know, I think Biden will win Virginia. Wisconsin's in Trump's column, Michigan's in Trump's column, Pennsylvania's in Trump's column, Nebraska's second, which is interesting, is in Trump's column. This is a pollster that is dim leading in PPP polls. Nebraska's second. Trump, this is the only poll we've seen this cycle out of Nebraska's second district. Trump up 3 points there, which is pretty incredible. 323 to 215. And let's just say, for argument's sake, that Biden wins Minnesota 313 to 225. Now, I want to give you this scenario just before we get out of here. Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania out, and Nebraska second. So right now, I would say this is probably Trump's firewall. I think he has a 268 firewall. I think he's going to win Nevada. I think he's going to win Arizona. I think he's going to win Georgia. I think he's going to win North Carolina. Now, let's just say hypothetically that he does win Nebraska second. That alone would get him to 269. If Biden carried these states, he would also be at 269, which would be an electoral tie, which means it would go to the House of Representatives for the tying vote, which would ultimately go to Donald Trump. So if Nebraska's second and Donald Trump holds the Sun Belt, he would win the presidency without having to get a Rust Belt state. I don't think that's going to happen. I do think Biden will take Nebraska second, but Trump gets there with Michigan. He gets there with Wisconsin. He gets there. He gets there with obviously Pennsylvania. He gets there with Pennsylvania without Arizona and Nevada. With just Georgia and Pennsylvania, he gets there. He can get there with Georgia, Michigan, and Nevada, which would be a winning ticket. Which Nevada looks like it's definitely in this column. So maybe you put all your cards in Michigan. He can get there with Wisconsin, Nevada, and Arizona. So multiple ways for Donald Trump to win the presidency. Joe Biden has less ways. He would have to win Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania. He needs to carry all the Rust Belt states to win the presidency, and Nebraska second to win the presidency. If he loses let's just say he loses the least amount of electoral votes in Wisconsin, he still holds Nebraska second, and he would take Michigan. If he loses that in Wisconsin, he would need Arizona to win the presidency. He would need Nevada. He would need Nevada and another state, so he would hopefully go for Georgia. He has a lot more harder paths, especially with what the polls are. Trump leading in the polls in Georgia by a lot, as I just showed you. We go to Georgia. Trump has an aggregate of 4.5 points. This was after the New York Times and Siena poll had him up by 9. He has Georgia. North Carolina is not even being polled as a battleground state. I do think that's a little dangerous. I do think North Carolina is going to be a little bit more competitive than these polls are showing. But again, North Carolina is still well within Trump's column. So he really has a firewall of 251. So that gives Joe Biden less opportunity for error in some of these states. And, it's hard to believe that Joe Biden's going to get out of here with a victory in 2020, which is why I believe he feels like he has to debate Trump. He has to get out there and go up against this guy and see what happens. My prediction for now for the presidency of the United States is still what it was last time I did a video, which is 312 to 226. I do think Trump will carry all the Rust Belt states and flip Nevada. I do not view him getting New Jersey or anything like that, like Republicans are hoping. But best case scenario for Trump, I believe, is this. I do believe Trump's best case scenario is 323. I don't think he could eclipse 323. But so I think 323 is his ceiling, but I do think that his floor is incredibly low when you look at it. I think his floor is probably 252. Maybe you could make a case that his floor is 258, which would be, or rather 257, because I don't think Nebraska's second falls within his floor. I think 257 is his floor, which gives him a plethora of ways to win the presidency, as we mentioned, just with Michigan or with Pennsylvania. He could get there with Pennsylvania. He could get there with Wisconsin and either Arizona or Wisconsin and Minnesota. So thanks, guys, for watching this video. We'll be back with more throughout the year. We will definitely live stream the debate when it does happen on June 27th. And man, oh man, who in their right mind is not excited to see these two candidates get up in front of the public and debate the issues? Trump has a lot to say, and Biden will have a lot to defend. Thanks, guys, for watching this video. Subscribe as always. And for now, D. Mixon out.